one and all, welcome to Seen Through Glass. Welcome back to STG HQ. Now, some of you might have seen a few weeks ago now, I was joined in this very building by Richard Groves from Active Digital. We recorded a kind of modern classics special episode of my podcast, Behind the Glass. Well, on the day of the recording, Richard turned up with a Subaru 22b. And after a few hours of walking around the car and talking about it, Richard went, "You know what, Sam, you should really make a proper video on this car." I went, "Yes, Richard, yes I should, because if you don't know, Subaru 22bs are insanely rare and becoming increasingly more valuable. So getting the chance to kind of be around one, drive one, let alone film one, well, that just doesn't really happen. And actually in my research after the podcast and the lead up to today, I realised the only other kind of recent coverage of a 22b was in an Evo article. And looking at the pictures in the magazine, I realised that it's Richard's car. So clearly he's on a mission to prove to people why this thing is so damn special. I actually read that Evo article on Readly, who have very kindly sponsored today's video. I've recently become obsessed with their apps. If you haven't heard of Readly before, essentially it allows you access to over 5,000 national and international magazine titles. In the past, I'd probably only ever read magazines when I was travelling. If I had a flight, I'd get to the airport early, buy a whole stack of magazines, take them on the plane with me. If I had a long train journey, maybe I'd do the same thing. But then that often meant that I would forget the magazines on the plane or in the hotel when I got to the destination I was heading to. And then over the last 18 to 24 months, because I haven't really been traveling, I haven't really been reading magazines until, as I say, I discovered Readly. They have every single kind of magazine you can imagine on there. But of course, for me, it's all about the car magazines. And as I mentioned, national and international titles. You can get car magazines from India and Sweden and Switzerland and France. And think of a car magazine, you'll probably find it on Readly. And it's been amazing because not only can you, the latest edition, read the latest reviews, but you can also access back editions. That's how I went back and read that article on Richard's 22b in Evo. You can read offline. You don't have to carry around a big stack of paper with you anymore. It's in your pocket, accessible via your phone or your tablet. So for me, I remember reading magazines when I was 9, 10, 11, 12. That's how I got into cars. F1 racing, that was my Bible. And so now I've got all of that once again with me whenever I need it. So click that link below. You'll get 2 months free, and then it's just $7.99 a month after that. And you can cancel at any time. So yes, go and check it out for you, your family, your friends to all enjoy the magazines that you love. Anyway, I need to go and find Richard and this 22b. Richard, you've already been on the podcast, but I'm now going to welcome you to the main channel. Welcome to Seen Through Glass.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you for having me down, and thank you for giving me the chance to film, experience, and learn more about this insane car. Let's kick things off sort of in layman's terms, or if someone had never heard of a Subaru Impreza or a 22b before, what is this car and why is it considered to be so special?
Yeah, so this is a celebration of 40th anniversary for Subaru, and they built the 1997 World Rally car with the flared arches. And then in 1998, they brought this out as a road car. So you really see the difference with the arches built out, arches on the rear, rose jointed suspension. They changed the engine to a 2.2, which gave it a lot more torque. So it's one of the only ones with a 2.2. But as you said before, there is a lot of additions of Subaru I've been through to get to here. Originally, would you know about the Series McRae?
You're going to have to
yeah, so
pretend like I know nothing, because I probably do know
was
nothing.
The first one.
Okay.
200 cars, and I bought that one. Okay. Then they had a Catalunya, they had a Terzo, an RB5, which I've had all of them as well. The RB5 was just fantastic. Then I went to P1.
Which is, I think, at least in the UK, often sort of speculated as one of the best. Is it? Like, where does the P1 sit?
Yeah, I mean, I had a pretty bad accident in my one, so okay. I wrote it off. And then I had another one, but I think that the P1 is a fantastic car, fantastic road car. The difference really on this is more the body kit, the lower torque, shorter gearing. The P1 had a bit longer gearing. I love the look of the 22b. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. But the P1's a very good investment at the moment. They have come back down a bit and they are picking back up because these have gone so high.
And with all the different variations and versions, how much of it was mechanical changes? How much was it sort of aesthetic? We've talked about the wide body kit, but you mentioned that there's a slightly different engine in here and the ratios.
Yeah, so you've got a 2.2, so the torque comes in about 3,200 revs, and then it's about 300 horsepower. Gentleman's agreement there, they all say 280, but it may be a little bit more than that. But yeah, it's rose jointed suspension, upside down Bilstein at the time, on the dampers. Yeah, it's just a fantastic car to drive. You've also got, it's one of the only ones in the UK that has the diff. The Japanese cars had that, but you've got the diff in there to go up and down. You don't have that on the P1. So it starts at sort of 66, 33, and then you wind that diff up to go 50-50.
Okay, so then talk about that, because you mentioned Japanese cars versus, I guess, European cars, because initially this was only offered in Japan, right?
That's right, and they sold out very quickly. Initially they were around sort of £40,000, I think, and they sold out in Japan. They imported very quickly 50, because the UK market just wanted this car. Then they produced 16 UK cars to satisfy demand. And then they had another 3 cars that were special cars, 000, for Colin McRae, Nicky Grist, and I think David Latworth.
Very cool.
Had the other one.
Okay, so at the time they were the Subaru factory rally drivers.
Yeah, and Colin used this car a lot. There's videos of him in that, and he said it's one of his favourite ever road cars, but he said you can get in a lot of trouble with it, which I would know, because they are very light. I know I spoke a bit about that before. The steering is very light. These are a very light car, and the Subarus were like that. So it takes a bit of time to get that trust, and then when you do, it eggs you on to go quicker and quicker, you know.
So, okay, so apart from the special bits you mentioned, the fact it's super rare in terms of numbers, the body kit, in terms of performance, was this peak for Impreza at this era? Like, in terms of, I know they were limited on power, weren't they? They had some restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, the P1 was built after this, so obviously they both went 2-door, which makes a big difference, I think, with the shape. But I still like the 4-door, but they all went 2-door. But the P1, maybe a slightly quicker car. There wouldn't be a lot in it, you know, because that 2 litre was pumping out 280 to 300. These had slightly bigger tyres on them. These are Speedline WRC rims, but they had a 235 on the 22b, but just a 205 45/17 on the P1. So this one had a little bit more grip there.
Now, I know from sort of, well, no lack of experience, but some experience, it's quite hard to find a completely clean and untouched Subaru. So what are we looking at here? Have you done anything to this over and above how it left the factory?
No, so when this comes to me, this was all in stickers, like a rally car. It had, and I resprayed the car and got it back to pretty much original condition that I wanted. The interior is absolutely fantastic, but I wanted it, obviously I bought the 5,000 mile one, and I wanted to just keep that as
That's
a timepiece.
the other 22B.
That's the other 22B.
Yeah.
And then,
because I did hint at the fact you
and
have
everyone
2.
kept going, you're crazy to drive it, you're crazy. So I done the Evo magazine shoot, that went great, and Dickie Meaden drove it with the Quattro and the Yaris, the GR. And then this one come up, and I thought, I've got to have another one to drive, because this one's the 5,000 miles going to rock it, and then that's half the problem. Then you don't see them, people don't drive them, because the values have just gone so high.
Well, look, I'm super intrigued and I'm super excited. My audience will correct me, but I'm almost certain I've never driven an Impreza. I had my first Skyline experience a couple of years ago, driven a couple of Evos. I don't think I've ever driven an Impreza, and I want an Impreza to drive. So I'm going to get some tips from you on what I should be expecting or how to get the best out of this. And then, unbelievably, thanks to this absolute legend, yes, I'm going to be getting behind the wheel of this outrageously special car. This is already very good. Now, we've been banging on about how special the 22B is. What we haven't really mentioned yet is how valuable they've become. Because they're so special, you can expect to pay 150, 200, 300,000 pounds for a 22B these days. Now, some of you, even Subaru fans, may scoff at that because, well, that's a lot of money, and let's face it, you can get a fairly decent stock or modified Impreza from the same era for 20, 30,000 pounds still. Even I think a WRX STi Type R is only about 25 or 30 grand. So why is this car quite so valuable? Because as Richard mentioned, yes, it's got some special bits on it, and yes, it was limited. I think a lot of the value lies in what it kind of represents and what it kind of stands for, because back in the 90s, Subaru were rallying, and Colin McRae, as we all know, one of the sort of most iconic and famous drivers, and he was driving around in this because whilst it wasn't, this is not a homologation special, this wasn't a car that was built so that Subaru could take part in the WRC, the World Rally Championship. It's near as, damn it, the same thing. Visually, it looks like the World Rally car. It has got some sort of motorsport components on it. And rallying has always, I think, been the sort of the everyman's motorsport, right? Formula One is elitist. It's hard to get into. It's all about the money, and it attracts brands like Ferrari and McLaren, which, as I say again, are all about money. Whilst rallying kind of felt like you and your dad or you and your mate could kind of somehow muster together a decent car and take part in. And Colin McRae felt like your kind of mate who was really fast. And Subarus, because they were and still are relatively affordable to buy from new, well, it meant that you could watch Colin McRae or whoever win on a Sunday, and you could go and buy that car on a Monday. And sitting here right now driving this thing, it feels amazing. It feels like a fantastic road car. It doesn't actually feel as dated as I thought it might. 1998, that is a long time ago, but the car still feels tight. It feels put together. This is the higher mileage of Richard's two 22Bs, 32,000 miles on the clock, so it's not like it's, you know, pristine and brand new, but it feels quick as well. We haven't really pushed on yet. I'm actually following Richard in his GTA, as you may have spotted in the background of some of my shots. It does have a few other cars, Richard, actually some amazing cars, and we'll talk about that a bit on the podcast that we did a few weeks ago. But yeah, so I'm following him in that, trusting the route that he's taking me on, and hopefully there'll be some moments where we can kind of open this thing up. But yeah, it feels responsive, but it feels very nice, very road compliant. We already mentioned those upside down Bilstein dampers, makes it, yeah, very road compliant. But the big scoop on the bonnet, the iconic blue colour, and knowing, well, what this car achieved in period around rally circuits, I just feel cool. I feel like I want to go flat out. And actually, it's really rewarding when you do go flat out. We did a couple of quick accelerations as we left the house, and just the only thing that which has changed on this car is the exhaust. It does sound pretty mega. You get that nice burble. They are pretty surprisingly quiet stock. You hear so many modified. There we go. You just want to keep going through those gears. But you hear so many modified Subarus, you kind of forget what the actual factory stock cars sound like. So I understand why he wanted to put an exhaust on this one, and it was well worth it. Adds to the experience. How does this compare, for example, to the R34 GTR that I drove in Canada during Drive the World? Well, I don't know why this sort of feels better. It feels tighter. It feels more honed in. Everything's just, oh yes, here we go. Oh, that gear change is lovely, and oh, the steering is so light. The whole car feels like, actually, it's something that Richard mentioned I would pick up on. It's just in general, everything about it feels lightweight. But then of course you've got the four-wheel drive, so it just means you can pick up power and go whenever you like. But the torque is nearly instant. There's no lag. It's right there. And then whenever you shift gear, you seem to be right in that torque range once again, ready to just push on. Oh, I like it so much. I like it so much. It does make me want to drive like a hooligan, everywhere like a hooligan, which, you know, maybe is part of the Subaru identity. Sorry, Subaru owners. It's just that thing where it feels like such a complete road car, whilst we know, hey, raise the ride height ever so slightly and make a few other changes, you can go pretty fast off-road as well. Oh, it's a very nice place to be, and this interior now weirdly has aged so well, you know. Oh my giddy aunt, I like this car a lot. Oh, I like this car so very much. Yes, this is brilliant. This is so good. I wasn't expecting it to be this good. I just never want to get out now. I'm literally going to go and buy a Subaru after this, aren't I? It is. I can't quite explain why it's so good, but you can hear that it's always just ready to go. It's always pushing on. But it's tactile. You feel things through the steering. You feel things through the suspension. You feel it through your right foot. Just checking how many gears I got. I forgot for a second there. I was reaching, going like, well, anything going to happen now? Brakes are pretty good. Okay, fine. In comparison to modern stuff, they could be a little bit more responsive, but they're good. And now, and obviously that four-wheel drive system. There we go. Just found the grip there. That was a sort of dampish section, but it found the grip and just threw threw me up the hill. And I'm sure Rich is not really pushing on in that GTA, but I'm keeping up with him. Damn right I am. That's what it's about. I want to be harassing way more, well, I was going to say way more expensive cars, but let's face it, not a lot is more expensive than this 22B at the minute. Yeah, highly valuable. Could you get close to this? Could you get a P1? Could you get a Type R? Would it feel as special? I don't know, because there are just so many iterations, so many variations. Subaru fans, are you freaking out right now that I'm getting to drive this? Is this the pinnacle? Or is it just that collectors have decided that this is the one to have, that this is the one they're going to push up the value of? Because that does sometimes happen, and it's happening a lot with Japanese cars. The Tommy Mackinnon edition Evo has gone from 15 odd grand sort of 3 years ago to now 70, 80 grand. They're flying up, they're sought after. But that's not always a great thing, because you know what's going to happen is I'm going to now go and say, oh, I want to buy a Subaru, and I'm going to go and drive a fairly standard car and go, doesn't quite feel the same. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I'm having like a whole new moment in my life. Thank you so much. I mean, honestly, what an experience. I'm so jealous of you. I kind of want to go on Auto Trader right now and start looking at Imprezas.
I think until you drive one, you don't realise how light they are.
I didn't know what I was missing. But look, I did sort of showcase the fact, or tease the fact, that you have got some other bits lurking around here, and if people want to see what you're doing, challenge the road.
Challenge the road. Yeah.
I don't know why I had a panic attack. I went challenge Stradale in my head, but
well, that was
whenever I say challenge,
that was the name I done the channel for. That was my favourite car. So there you
man
go.
You see, so yeah, if you want to see more on any of these little things that I'm kind of just pointing out in the background, go over check out Richard's new channel. That would be amazing. And I feel like we need to do more together. I feel like this is just the start.
We should do some road trips.
Well, that's basically, I just want to spend more time in your car. So if you're up for it, I am.
So what was your overall feeling from it? Because obviously there's lots of Subaru editions we spoke about, and you've just gone in straight at.
Well, I've gone at the top.
Yeah,
that's the problem, right? That's why I need to be a little bit more realistic, or understanding at least, that I may have just driven the pinnacle, which is, you know, sometimes the wrong way to do it. But I think what surprised me is how eager it was. Every single gear, it just wanted to go. The throttle response was amazing. Every time I shifted the gear, it just was in this perfect torque band that meant
that's the key. When you change gear, it goes again instant. There's no lag. It's just again.
Go. The steering was really nice.
Happy.
It makes you feel really happy. I was like, come on! And that's the thing is, I was kind of, hey, I'm sure you were driving at 20% in that GTA, but I kind of felt like I was harassing you, and it was kind of exciting. I was like, yeah, come on! And then you've got the coolness of you see the paint colour, and you immediately know what you're in. The feeling of the gear change, that kind of mechanical notchy switch.
The light clutch round town. It's so easy, isn't it? Really easy to manoeuvre, and it just doesn't feel 23 years old.
If you told me it was an 8-year-old car, I'd be like, yeah, sure. So, oh mate, I really, really enjoyed it. I think what I'd be intrigued to know is if I jumped into, you know, maybe not a bog standard car, but a P1 or a Type R or one of the other editions. Would they also be as good, or is this just really, really as special as the value is now suggesting?
No, I think the P1, you're pretty much 95% here. So you're not far off. And even the original Subaru is still a great car. You know, the original 2000.
Just trying to get me to spend my money now, yeah. I want you. Well, look, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. As I say, challenge the road, go check it out. And if you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Stay subscribed for hopefully lots more Subaru content to come.